بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على سيدنا ونبينا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين لا سيما بقية الله في الأراضين اللهم كل وليك الحجة ابن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك طوعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. I am grateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for having this blessing of meeting you, and also to spend time together reflecting on our responsibilities and duties towards our beloved Imam in this time of ghaibah. So inshallah, in 3 sessions that we have, we will talk about responsibilities of believers in the time of ghaibah, and I hope this would help us to get closer, inshallah, to Imam of our time and to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There are things that... Sure. We need this or we don't need this? We need both. We need both, okay. There are things that are common for all Shia from the beginning up to this time and up to the end of this world. There are things which are exclusive to the Shia of the time of ghaibah or occultation. Tonight, I want to clarify this main point, that we have something special, something additional that we need to fulfill, and if we fulfill this, would put us in a very high position. Shia, in the time of the presence of Imams, didn't have this additional responsibility, and at the same time, it means that they didn't have the opportunity for getting the reward and the light which comes when you fulfill this responsibility. So, first, I quickly review what we share with the Shia of the time of presence of Imams, and then we will focus on what is exclusive to us. We all know that Sunni and Shia Muslims have narrated in many different ways, different chains of narrations, that every person has to know Imam of his or her time. Yeah? Whether you live in the time of Amir al-Mu'mineen or Imam Hassan or Imam Hussein or this time, this is a common responsibility. Even we can say that even those who lived in the time of previous Imams, because we believe from Quranic perspective, Imams were not only these 12 Imams. These are 12 Imams for Muslim community. Otherwise, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Ibrahim was also Imam. إِنِّي جَاعِلُكَ لِلنَّاسِ إِمَامًا. But for this particular period of time, which we have after the Prophet, and Imams are infallible successors to the Prophet, we say, Man mata wa lam ya'rif imam zamanihi mata mitat al-jahiliyyah. Let me refer to some of these hadiths and explain. For example, Sheikh Kulayni Ridwanullah Ta'ala alayhi, as a sample of Shia narrations about this, has quoted in volume 2, page 265 of Al-Kafi, Man mata la ya'rifu imamah mata mitatan jahiliyyah. He who dies without knowing his imam. So in this version, it says imama, who doesn't say imam zamani. In some versions, it says imam zamani. So we have different versions indicating the same meaning. Here says, Man mata la ya'rifu imama. The one who dies while he doesn't know imam of himself or herself, mata mitatan jahiliyyah. Dies the death of ignorance. You know, the era before Islam is called the era of Jahiliyyah, Asrul Jahiliyyah. It's a very good way of summarizing every problem in that society, because the root of all the problems is ignorance. Especially ignorance in the sense that is more comprehensive than not knowing. Jahala in the Quranic sense means either you don't know or you act like those who don't know. So sometimes people know, but they don't benefit from this knowledge. They act like those who don't know. They act unwisely. This is also jahl. So the era before Islam is the era that people didn't act according to reason, according to knowledge, according to insights. Basically, they were confused. They didn't have direction in life. Okay? Now, if we live after Islam, but we don't know at each time who is our Imam, who is connecting us to the tradition of the prophets and messengers, and in particular to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The end result would be similar. Although you have managed to know the Prophet of Akhirul Zaman, but if you don't know Imam of your time, the end result is that you are not enjoying direction which comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Even if you follow one Imam, but when it comes to the second Imam, you lose the connection, then you lose the direction. Either you have the connection and then direction, or no connection and no direction. This is Jahiliyyah. Okay? We had Shia who believed up to certain Imam. Sometimes they believe up to 4th Imam, sometimes 5th Imam, sometimes 6th Imam, sometimes even 7th Imam, like Waqifiyah. They had even up to 7 Imams, but then they lose connection and direction. But this has to continue all the time. You have to find out who is Imam of your time and connect. Allama Majlisi Ridwanullah Ta'ala alayhi, this great scholar that we owe him a lot because of great heritage, great legacy that he left behind for us. In volume 8, page 368 of Biharul Anwar, he says, this great muhaddis, he says, قَدْ رَبَتِ الْعَامَّةُ وَالْخَاصَّةُ مُتَوَاتِرًا. Shia and Sunni, all have narrated as mutawatir. Mutawatir is a hadith which is so many times narrated, generation by generation, that there is no chance of saying this is fabricated or this is mistaken. If 100 people, 200 people report something, and then in the second generation again 100, 200 people, and then in the third generation, all the way, then this is mutawatir. But for example, if 1,000 people report what they all have received from one person, this is not mutawatir. Mutawatir means that right from the first person, for example, Rasulullah or Imams, from the first person, in all generations, the narrators are so many that would leave no chance for any doubt. This is called mutawatir. Sometimes a hadith is mutawatir among Sunnis, maybe, for example, or Shia, but sometimes it's mutawatir عند الفريقين. This is one of the hadiths which is mutawatir and the fariqain, Sunni and Shia. So he says, قد ربت العامة والخاصة متواترا من مات ولم يعرف إمام زمانه مات ميتة جاهلية. So whoever dies without knowing Imam of his or her own time dies death of ignorance. We have also from Sunni sources, for example, I mentioned for you something from Musnad of Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal. He says, Man mata bighayr imamin mata mitatan jahiliya. Or for example, in Sahih Muslim, Man mata wa laysa fi unuqihi bay'ah mata mitatan jahiliya. The one who dies and doesn't have bay'ah and allegiance to Imam of his time dies the age of, as someone who dies in the age of Jahiliyyah. And there are many hadiths like this. So, what is proper ma'rif of Imam? Inshallah, I will come back to this. But just I want to say that one of the common responsibilities of people in all ages, at least from time of Amir al-Mu'minin up to now and till end of this world, is to know Imam of your time. Okay, this is a common responsibility. Another common responsibility is obedience. Because if you know Imam and don't obey him, then you are not benefiting. أطيعوا الله وأطيعوا الرسول وأولي الأمر منكم. Obedience is the way to benefit. If you have the best advisor, for example, for medical issues, for business issues, for, I don't know, family issues, if you have the best advisor and you don't listen to his advice, what's the benefit? Say, my doctor is the best, but I don't listen to what he says. You're not benefiting. Ati'ullah, obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and then because of obedience to Allah, obey the messenger. We obey messenger because we obey Allah, and then we obey our imams because of obedience to Rasulullah, which is obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay? So this is an act of obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So all the Shia in all ages have this responsibility of obeying imams. And obeying imams sometimes means obeying imams which are not now living with us. Yeah? For example, we obey Rasulullah. Is Rasulullah living with us? No. We obey Amir al-Mu'minin. Is he living with us? No. But whatever commands, whatever instructions we have received from Rasulullah or imams, we obey. Also, we should obey instructions from imam of our time. So when you live with an imam, you obey him, but also you obey previous imams. Okay? So this is common between us and all the Shia in all the ages. The third thing is connection to Imams through tawassul, through istishfa. So this is also something very important that in all ages would apply to the Shia. That Shia should have, in addition to ma'rifah and obedience, they should have a spiritual connection with Imam also. Imam is not just a leader that we listen to his advice without developing love. There is a strong sense of love and devotion that we develop towards Imam. Actually, love for Imam is a manifestation of love for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay? وَلَن كُنْتُمْ تُحِبُّونَ اللَّهِ فَاتَّبِعُونِي يُحْبِبْكُمُ اللَّهِ. If you love Allah, you follow the Prophet and Imams, and then you will be loved by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The difference between our wilaya and wilaya in the camp of falsehood or shaitan is that over there is obedience, but there is no love. Here there is obedience and love. Sometimes you obey, but maybe you even hate. You work in an office organization, you obey because if you don't obey, you get into problem. They may sack you, they may fire you. You obey them, but you don't love them. But in the camp of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, obedience and love come together. Maybe followers of Muawiyah were listening to him 100%. Even if Muawiyah was saying, we do Salatul Jummah on Wednesday, they were listening to him. Okay? They had full obedience. They were not thinking, they were not questioning, they were just listening to Muawiyah. But did they love Muawiyah? No. Many of them in their heart, they knew that he is, a bad person, he's a vicious person. But they were benefiting from each other. They were using each other for their own gain. Otherwise, there was no love. But in the camp of haqq, in the camp of truth, obedience comes with love. Actually, you obey because you love. Not only you obey and love, you first love and then obey. Whenever I love someone, I want to make that person happy. Actually, I look for opportunities to do something for that person if I love someone, yeah? If, inshallah, we get, for example, opportunity to be with Imam Zaman or with a very pious scholar, with our marja, everyone looks for an opportunity to offer something. Can I, do something for you? Because love leads to obedience. Okay? So, the Shia, in addition to knowing Imam and obeying Imam, they develop love for Imam, a strong love. And this love is so powerful that when they are happy, you become happy. When you are sad, you become sad. Yeah? Shi'atuna khuliqu min fadli tinatina. Our Shia are created from the same tina, from the same clay which we are created. We don't have time to talk about tina. In some lectures I have explained what is tina. So there is a common tina, a common clay from which we are created. Okay? يَحْزَنُونَ لِحُزْنِنَا وَيَفْرَحُونَ لِفَرَحِنَا. When we are sad, they are sad. When we are happy, they are happy. And it's also mutual. We have many hadiths that say that when Shia are sad, Imams become sad. Naghtammu. We become sad when you are sad. When we have success, they become happy. So it's mutual love between the followers and Imam. And if this love gets more, then it's not through conventional connections. You know, some people think that, for example, it is Muharram, we become sad because Ahlul Bayt are sad. It is, I don't know, a birthday, we become happy because they are happy. It's more than that. A true Shia should feel in his or her heart when Imam is sad. So if Imam Mahdi Ajalallah Ta'ala Farajahu Sharif for some tragic events, for some difficulties, he has pain, he has sadness in his heart, his true Shia would feel that. It's not just, you know, that through general conventional ways. There is a connection. Like mothers, when their children have problem, many times without any, you know, message, without any call, they feel that. Love brings connection. We should be like that. Ahlul Bayt are like that. Any Shia, even human being, but especially any member of the family of Ahlul Bayt who is sad, they feel sad. If you are happy, they feel happy. We should be the same. So, love brings connection in spirituality, in the heart, and then because you have this love and this knowledge of them and this obedience to them, whenever you have issues, you may also do tawassul. You say to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that, oh Allah, these are the people that you have introduced to me, that I should follow them. If I knew anyone closer to you, I would have used them as my wasila. But now through them, I ask you to grant my haja. So, tawassul is a natural implication of your ma'rifah and love for imams. When you know what position they have with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and you love them, then in the most sacred moment, which is when you connect to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you bring them in. And you ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to help you because of them. Or you ask them to intercede. Sometimes we ask Allah because of them, sometimes we ask them to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In both ways it works. And also we know that they have permission, they have right for shafa'ah. So we ask them to do shafa'ah for us. Ya wajihan indallah, ishfa' lana indallah. So, all the Shia had this in all ages. Ma'rifah, ta'a, mahabba, tawassul, shafa'ah, or asking for shafa'ah, which we call istishfa'. They all had this. But there is something especially for our time of ghaibah. And I want to, inshallah, focus on that. Can you guess what is the extra things that we have? I'm sure you all know. Taqleed comes under this. Yes, I heard someone said intidhaar. Intidhaarul faraj. This is something for the time of ghaibah. The Shia of the time of Amirul Mu'mineen or Imam Hassan or Imam Hussein, alayhimus salam. They had sometimes intidhaar al-faraj in general sense, that they were waiting for, improvement. Inshallah, we will talk about concept of intidhaar al-faraj. It has two meanings. So in broader sense, every mu'min can be waiting for improvement. But intidhaar in its specific sense, waiting for reappearance of Imam to lead the universal movement for bringing peace and solidarity to the world, this is only for the Shia of the time of Ghaibah. And without intidhaar, we are not proper Shia. Without intidhaar, you could be a proper Shia maybe before. Even I think at that time, they were expected to be waiting for this. But at least in this time, it's very obvious that one of the great requirements of Iman and faith is intidhaar. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, أفضل العبادة انتظار الفرج. The best act of worship is intidhar al-faraj, is to be waiting actively for faraj. Because if I say just to wait, it doesn't fulfill the meaning of intidhar. Intidhar is not just to wait. Intidhar is an action. Afdalul ibadah is an act. It's a kind of worship. Just to wait is not a ibadah. But when you are actively waiting, inshallah we'll explain what does it mean. This is the greatest ibadah, intidharul faraj. Or in another hadith he said, Afdalu jihad ummati intidharul faraj. The greatest struggle that my nation should undertake is intidharul faraj, actively waiting for faraj. Intidhar is a great responsibility and at the same time great honor that we have if you can be muntazir for Imam Mahdi ajjalallahu ta'ala farajahu sharif. And this is not easy. If we were able to ask our Imam, are we really falling under muntazirin, then many of us may not receive, approval. Imam may say, this person is muntazir, this person is not muntazir. They are not all muntazir because they are Shia and they believe that the 12th Imam is, in occultation, and he is coming to come. For example, if people suffer from illness, if people suffer from illness, there is epidemic disease, people are dying, and we need help. So, if we are just waiting for something to happen, so, maybe by miracle, this disease stops. Maybe by miracle, people will be healed. We are not muntazir. If we try to find the best doctor with the best medicine, but again, we don't do anything. We say we have found out who is the best doctor, and we are waiting. Maybe he passes by here. Maybe someone asks him, to come here. But we don't do anything. We are just waiting. Maybe we have hope. Inshallah, one day he passes by here. This is not intidhaar. If we find him and communicate to him and say, please come, ajjal ala zuhurek, but we don't do anything. We just say, please come. Again, this is not intidhaar. But if we find him, we request him to come and prepare ourselves. It's okay, if he comes, he cannot see the people on the street. He cannot see all the people alone. Let us equip ourselves. Let us mobilize what we have. At least we know that he needs, for example, a clinic. He needs, some equipment. He needs some beds. He needs some nurses. We need to have a way to prioritize people who have greater needs so that they can first be seen. So if you do everything that you can, then you can say you are muntadhir. Otherwise, you are not muntadhir. You are just, waiting and wasting the time. If people suffer from ignorance, and we have found the best scholar, the best teacher, we cannot just say, okay, we have found him, and we say, please come. No. Have you mobilized your available resources? Have you equipped yourselves? Have you worked with unity to make the infrastructure needed? And then you invite him, or you are doing nothing and just say, please you come and do everything yourself. Like the people in the time of Musa ala nabiyina wa alayhi salam. They said to Musa, اذهب أنت وربك فقاتلا إنها هنا قاعدون. They said, you and your Lord go and fight them. We are sitting here. We promise you we are sitting here. إنها هنا, truly we are here. We don't go anywhere else. But we wait just here. When you win and succeed, we come. إنها هنا قاعدون. We shouldn't be like this and say to Imam Mahdi, you and your Lord go and solve the problems. We are sitting here. We don't go anywhere. We are sitting in the Husayniyah, in the masjid, doing dua nutbah. You solve the problem. Then when you establish your government, we come and join. This is not intidhaar. Intidhaar is to say to Imam that, oh Imam, whatever we knew that we should do, we did it. Whatever instructions we have received, we implemented. Alhamdulillah, look at our families, look at our communities, look at our internal relations, look at our public relations. We have made your community a very exemplar community. Everyone in the world is now respecting our community. Now is the time that we can help you to spread this to all humanity. But if we expect Imam Zaman to come and help us with our own internal problems, then how can he say to humanity, we have a way of salvation, a way of happiness for you, when his own community are suffering? Therefore, this is my last point. Inshallah, we can receive some questions. Therefore, my understanding is this. I say, Zuhur of Imam alayhi salam, reappearance of Imam Zaman ajjalallahu ta'ala farajahu sharif, is different from appointment of the prophets, from bi'sa. Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam was raised by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in which culture? In the culture of Jahiliyyah. In the time of darkness. He was a flash of light in darkness. Okay? So Bi'sa can happen like that. When people are very far from the truth, from justice, from virtues, Allah may send a prophet to guide them. But coming of Imam Mahdi is different. Coming of Imam Mahdi is when there are problems, but there is progress on the side of Haqq, in the camp of Haqq. The camp of Haqq should show that much of growth and progress and maturity that zuhur would be gifted to them as a fruit, not as something in vacuum. If Allah wanted to make zuhur in a very dark and vicious and ignorant culture, why we had to wait? Zuhur happens when humanity reaches its peak. In the falsehood party, they reach the peak. That's not important. But in the camp of truth also, they should reach their peak. If the camp of Haqq doesn't reach its maturity and progress, they will not be honored with the gift of zuhur. Okay? So, we would have, before coming of Imam Mahdi ajallallahu ta'ala farajahu sharif, the best of mu'minin. The best of mu'minin, generally speaking. We are not talking about individual cases. Generally speaking, the best of mu'minin are mu'minin before Imam Mahdi comes. Inshallah, next week I will explain hadith of Imam Zainul Abidin to Abu Khalid al-Kabuli. That Imam says those who wait for Imam Mahdi, they are afdalu ahli kull zaman. They are best people of all times. It means that mu'minin, when they reach their maximum growth and productivity in bringing light, then Allah gives them with Imam Zaman's appearance. It's not by chance, it's not by accident. It's fruit of our progress. If we want him to come, we should grow. We should be ready. Inshallah, we will talk about also two groups of people that are introduced in our hadith. Helpers of Imam Mahdi, Ansar of Imam Mahdi, but more importantly, those who prepare for his coming. Al-Muwatti'un, those who prepare the ground for his coming. I stop here. If there are any questions, any comments, we can inshallah receive them.
Hassan, thank you. We'll have one question from the gents and then one question from the ladies. If I can request that when you've got a question, use the mic because it is being recorded. This side here.
Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh.
Alaikum assalam.
Thank you very much for your talk.
You're welcome.
I really enjoyed it. So you mentioned that it's not enough for us to do intidhaar, right? Sorry, we need to do intidhaar, right? So reciting something like Dua Ahad in the morning or reciting Ziyarat Ali Yasin or something, that's not considered as intidhaar, am I correct? Or is that still something
They
actively?
are necessary but not sufficient.
Okay, so can you give us one or two tips that we can take away today and start doing tomorrow of intidhaar, please?
Yeah. So, intidhaar involves reciting Dua Nudbe, but intidhaar is more an action. So, when each of us prepare ourselves for being like hand of Imam, being tongue of Imam, being eye of Imam, being helper of Imam, that is intidhaar. So if we do everything, but when it comes to the last step, we fall short, then it's not enough. we have in Ziyarat Jama'a this beautiful sentence. وَالنُّصْرَةِ لَكُمْ مُعَدَّةٌ. My help for you is prepared. What does it mean? Sometimes I say to a person that I am ready to help you. Tell me what to do. Sometimes I say, in order to help you, I have spent years of education, getting experience, making good relations. I am a helper actually. Not that you'd have to tell me, okay, you have to do 10 years of work so that you can help me. So each of us should make himself and herself the best actual assistant or helper for Imam. There are things that we need to do individually. There are things that we need to do as community. Part of it is personal, part of it is collective.
So maybe, inshallah, can you give us one or two things that we can do starting from tomorrow, that we can change our mindset, we can actively do something tomorrow, inshallah?
So if I want to say just one thing, is to change our mentality from me to we. This is, I think, the most fundamental thing. If instead of planning for yourself, my life, my business, I don't know, my home, think about we. This is very much present in our literature. For example, in Dua Ya Ahd, Allahumma inna nashku ilayk, not inni ashku ilayk. Faqda nabiyyana, wa ghaybata waliyana, wa kathrata aduwwina. So always think as a member of community of Imam, not a person that has part-time relation with the Imam. Yeah? So, if a football player forgets that he's a member of team, he's not able to play. Our main task is to be a good member of the community. And we can prosper if the community prospers. We can get close to our ideals if community moves towards ideals. Maybe this slows down sometimes your movement, because sometimes it's easier to walk alone. But Imam wants us to walk together. May Allah bless you.
Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh.
Alaikum salam.
So just going forward from what the brother said, I'm still trying to figure out how, as a woman, you can help, and also as a community. So are you saying something like community-wise, building the community, making awards available so children can go and study further, or encouragement that way? Or just a bit more clarification on the women's side and the community?
So actually, women can play a great role, and without women, this cannot succeed. So if you make sure that our next generation are looking at the world in this way, that we are members of community of Imam. Our community is spread all over the world. Yeah? We have different local communities, but our community is a worldwide community. في مشارق الأرض ومغاربها. Our community is spread from the east to the west. سهلها وجبلها برها وبحرها. Yeah? Even we think of members of community who have passed away. حيهم وميتهم. We don't forget those who have passed away. In this movement that we have, even we should think of the people who were part of our team, but now they are in the other world, but we are relying on their prayers, and we are remembering them and trying to be grateful to their services. If we can develop this mentality of belonging to the community and prioritize good of community over individual good, This by itself solves, I think, 90% of our problems. Because most of our problems, and these are increasing, is we suffer from individualistic approach. And unfortunately, this is also current of this time. People suffer from individualism. Even people now sometimes suffer from individualism inside their families. In the past, people were more closer to the community members than sometimes people today are with respect to their own brothers and sisters. People marry, but in their mind they remain single. This is this age, unfortunately. And therefore then some people think, why I should marry? If I'm going to be single, then I prefer to remain single. But our understanding is not only your wife and husband or brother and sister or cousins. Every believer, whether he is from your ethnicity or not, whether he's from your background or not, any person who believes in Ahlul Bayt is your brother and sister from both sides. Mu'mineen with respect to each other are brothers and sisters of the same parents. Sometimes you share father, for example. Sometimes you share mother. But mu'mineen share father and mother. Okay? We belong to the same family. Anyone believes in Amirul Mu'mineen, Lady Fatima, Rasulullah, should be my brother and sister in reality, not just, on the surface. So sisters, as mothers, as teachers, as educators, as any role that you play, you can help a spread of this mentality.
Thank you. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. I just want to check the more global view and the global challenges. There are obviously things we have to do at the local level to make society better. And I think most of our communities do what they can within their possibilities. But because the Imam Mahdi, he's meant to be a global leader. And the global population now is 8 billion throughout the world. He's meant to be the leader for all of them, not just for 200 million or 300 million Shia Muslims. So the question that arises is that the humanity as a whole, as a human family, they are facing so many challenges of such catastrophic proportions. The key of them obviously is the environmental crisis, climate change. If predictions are accurate, it could lead to many countries just disappearing off the map of the earth. And large numbers of populations are going to be in areas where there will be constant famine or desertification. So the key challenge for the global community is about resources and the distribution of the resources. So where you have inequalities to such an extent, nations, countries that exist, that are so powerful, they can impose their will on other nations and they can destroy them at the blink of a button. And there's no one to basically stop them. As we saw in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, where there are 2 nuclear bombs, not 1 but 2 devices. And the same people are in charge today, and they're getting more aggressive and more oppressive. And it doesn't seem to be, we can do our little bits, but at the end of the day, it seems the crisis is actually of global leadership. And that's what we need the most, a unifying global leader that can, as the Quran says, stand up for the mustadafin, for the oppressed. And God has promised that He will grant such a leader to every era, in every era. So we can wait and we can have an active waiting. But that active waiting could be very long as well, which is another challenge. We don't know how long that activating is going to be because nobody knows the answer. So this is the dilemma, and the key question is that how long do we have to wait until the Imam comes? And if it's a very long wait, then how do we bear that long wait? Because there is an end to one's patience. Every individual has we are human after all, and we get tired. Even the best of God's people got tired when they were in the desert for 40 days, this is the said. So the question is this, that why does the Imam not come sooner? Or how can it be possible for the Imam to come sooner? What do we do for that to happen? And then a secondary question, which I don't know, maybe you have planned to talk about it at some stage, is about the question of Bada, which I've read about. That it's possible that even when all the conditions are established, that God can postpone the coming of the Imam. So we might be prepared in our capacities for his coming, but then God can decide to change the plan and postpone his coming. So those are two questions that if you can address. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Actually, the way we understand intidhaar, I think, is answering their question. So if we were just waiting for Imam, then we could say, okay, what is going to happen to the problems of the world, etc. But what we say is that you have to do your best in living virtuous life, in bringing change. If you want for Imam to offer universal justice and equity, you have to start this in your own capacity, not as individuals only, but as a community. Thank you. So if all of us work for the same cause that Imam has and use our capacity and with unity, with real brotherhood and sisterhood, not 200 million, even if 1 million people are really united and work together, we can change the world. Rasulullah, with how many people changed the world? Amir al-Mu'minin had tens of times more people on his side, but because they were not united, they were troubling him instead of helping him. But Rasulullah, with few people, managed to change the world. كم من فئة قليلة غلبت فئة كثيرة بإذن الله. If quantity is not important that much, it's a secondary issue. If there is quality, if we have quality believers who are united and work as a team, certainly they can change the world, and then Allah would bless them with a divine leader to take this further. But if we don't do anything, or if we forget our direction and say, okay, let me be a social reformer, or I don't know, just someone who is trying to do something for humanity without connection to Imam and without being part of the plan of Allah, then we can do little. You have to make yourself part of the plan of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this plan is not subject to change. Bada would not happen to this. This is decisive, guaranteed plan of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَلَقَدْ كَتَبْنَا فِي الزَّبُورِ مِنْ بَعْدِ الذِّكْرِ. Thank you. This is written down. This is not subject to Bada. Bada is for small things. For this, which is, according to our hadith, even one day, if 1 day is remaining from the world, it's going to happen. There is no possibility of change. But how long it's going to take? Thank you very much. Inshallah, we will talk about it. But I can tell you that this does not need any, a specific time. It's up to us. We can make it soon, we can make it late. If the Shia are ready, it happens. Even if you are ready in the morning, in the same day this happens. It's not that Allah says, okay, you are ready, but we do it next day. Because, it has to be another day. No. If you are ready in the morning, it happens the same day. Imam is ready. Imam is in a standby position, just waiting for us. So, if there is delay, it's because of us, not because of him or because of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The late Khaja Nasiruddin Tusi, Rizwanullah ta'ala alayhi, in his historical book, Tajreed al-Aqaid, it's a very important book in Kalam. So he says about Imam Zaman, he says, وجوده لطف وتصرفه لطف آخر وعدمه منا. The fact that Imam Zaman exists, this is lutf. Existence of Imam Zaman is a grace of Allah, just his existence. Number two, tasarrufuhu. If he's able to function as Imam, this is additional lutf. And then he says, adamuhu minna. But why Imam is not functioning as a leader? It's because of us. So this is understanding of our ulama, that it's not that Imam is not with us because he's not ready or Allah doesn't want or because we don't have enough zulm in the world. No. If Imam is not with us, it's because we are not prepared. There's only one answer for that. If we are prepared, he will be with us. We will talk inshallah more about this. Thank you very much. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad.
Are there any questions from the lady side?
There's one on the table. Okay. Okay. Is doing Jihadul Akbar, a spiritual struggle, an example of actual intidhaar, working on ourselves to improve ourselves? Yes, certainly. Because the only people can help Imam Zaman are people who have purified themselves. If we suffer from ego, if we are selfish, how can we help Imam? It's impossible to help Imam with a universal movement for justice when we do zulm to ourselves or to others. So, every person should work on his or her spirituality, purity of the heart. Only with pure hearts we can help. Otherwise we become burden. We have to work on our sincerity. And one of the best ways to exercise is to work inside community. Because when you are alone, sometimes you develop very good idea about yourself. But when you are in the team, then you realize, how patient you are, how selfless you are, how cooperative you are. So we need to improve ourselves in the community, not in isolation. This is the way that we learn, from Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam, that inside community you can improve.
Any questions from the brothers?
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum.
Thank you very much. It's very interesting. My question was just about, you spoke about tawassul and kind of istishfa and the couple of ways that you can do it. So one is talking to God and saying, because this person is close to you, or the other one is going to the imam and saying, kind of take this to God. And I guess the third one might be actually just asking the imam directly, like, Ya sahib zaman adrikni. Like, so kind of, are all of those permissible in their own ways? And when do you use each of them, and which is the most preferable way of asking?
Yeah. Both ways, and actually there are 3 ways, but I mentioned 2 because I was talking about tawassul. Because there are 3 ways. Sometimes I ask Allah, I say, oh Allah, because of, for example, بحق Muhammad wa al Muhammad, because of the Prophet and Ahlul Bayt, grant me my hajah. This is one way of tawassul. Sometimes I say to the Imam or to Rasulullah, please ask Allah, Ya wajihan indallah, ishwa' lana indallah. The 3rd time is that sometimes I don't say ask Allah, I tell him, please help me with this. But in this implicitly means that with the permission of Allah. Okay, so if I say to Imam, please give me this, it means that because you are a servant of Allah, that Allah has given you ability to help, please help me with the permission of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So any of these 3 forms is legitimate and is working. Maybe you can see how you feel at that time. For example, maybe you are in a shrine or you are doing, certain dua, tawassul. So now you feel very close to the Imam or to the Prophet and you want to talk to them. Sometimes it's after your salat, for example, you feel very close to Allah and you want to directly call to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and say, because of them. All of them are possible. And it's good to have all of them in different times. Yeah? Sometimes this, sometimes that. So that we try every possible way.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the sister side? Come back to the brothers if there's none. Yep.
Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh.
Alaikum assalam.
And thank you for the beautiful lecture as always.
You're
welcome. So I had a couple of questions, if that's okay. The first one was, you just touched on it about how the 12th Imam is kind of in this position of standby, and you mentioned the hadith about how for this nation the biggest jihad is intidhaar. I mean, would the waiting of the Imam for himself be considered a jihad? What did the hadith say about the emotions that he's going through? How for 1,200 years, what his perceptions of this are? And the second one, it's a little bit, I guess, broader, but in terms of the Sunni view of the Mahdi, I don't know if this is a universal view, but if you could touch on it a little bit more, please, about whether they believe, so do they believe that there will be the Mahdi, but that he hasn't been born yet? Can they still be considered to be in some state of waiting for themselves? Even for some Shia that maybe doubt the ghaiba, or that the Imam hasn't been born, or whatever, are they still counted within this sort of jahil? I guess, do they die a death of ignorance without knowing their Imam, or do they know the Imam to a degree? If you could just speak a little bit more to that, that would be great, inshallah.
Yeah. So the first question is, when Imam is himself waiting, is also considered as, a kind of jihad for him? Of course, he's higher than even, thinking that this is his jihad, because Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam are purified by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. إنما يريد الله ليذهب عنكم الرجس أهل البيت ويطهركم تطهيرا. So they are purified. But if you want to call it jihad for them, a spiritual jihad, jihad akbar, for example, okay. But technically, what is jihad akbar? Jihad akbar is to fight against your own self, your own nafs ammare. But they don't have nafs ammare. Okay? So their jihad is to remain the way they are. For us, jihad is to purify ourselves. For them, like for example, imagine a sport champion who is, in the best form. What is his challenge? Is to remain in that form. For someone else, the challenge is, to work for months to reach that form. But regarding the pain and suffering, of course. So Imam is suffering when he sees the condition of humanity, condition of, all people and condition of believers. Especially I have a lecture I gave in Canada, maybe you have seen. I have explained how Imam Mahdi also has hope in every generation, because the time of zuhur is not fixed, okay? Not that it is fixed and we don't know. It's not fixed because it depends on us. So with every generation, Imam Mahdi has hope that this generation is going to maybe prepare for my coming. And unfortunately, we let him down. So he is really waiting moment by moment, not, he says, okay, for another 1,000 years it's not going to happen. Waiting is very difficult. If you wait for something and any moment can happen, it's very difficult. And how much you can wait? But he has been waiting for centuries. We can never understand how much he is suffering. Therefore, he has also very high position because of the suffering that he has. If others have suffered for some years, he has suffered for centuries. So he is in a very difficult situation. We need to help him with dua, we need to help him with sadaqah, but we need to help him with trying to prepare for coming of Imam. Imagine if, God forbid, imagine. For example, you have a father who is innocent and is put in prison. Yeah? And you forget about him. He's waiting for family, to put an end to this injustice, bring him out. But we do our life and, maybe every week we remember him. We don't do anything to bring him out. We just let this continue. It's very painful.
Thank you so much, Sheikh, for tonight. I meant to introduce you earlier, so sorry I was a bit late, busy outside. But thank you again for being with us today, mashallah. And alhamdulillah, great to see such a large crowd as well. So we're very happy for tonight's session. We'll end here today, and inshallah we'll continue next Saturday.
Inshallah. And tomorrow we have Fajr and Tafsir at 7, yeah? Inshallah. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen.
Yeah, please, Fajr is open to everyone, no registration needed. So inshallah, see you all at Fajr tomorrow.